I grew up in the 1950s and 1960s in a traditional post-World War II family. Father, mother, 3 kids. My dad went to work. My mother was a stay-at-home housewife. Here's a picture of her. She was beautiful. She was absolutely beautiful. But the older I get, the more I realize that beneath that demure housewife persona, she was a real character. So here's a story I have about her, my favorite story about her. When we were growing up, my mother bought us things, and she rarely bought anything for herself, with the one exception. When she and my dad would travel, which they needed to do from time to time because of his job, she would try to pick up a nice piece of jewelry. She loved beautiful jewelry. So after a while, she had a modest but very nice collection of jewelry. Well, a burglar broke into our house one time. He wasn't there for very long. He must have gotten scared off. But he had enough time to sort through her jewelry, and he stole about half of it. Well, after that, my mother refused to wear the half that the burglar had left behind. She figured if it wasn't good enough for him, it wasn't good enough for her. That story is in my book. The older I get, the smarter my mother was. But also mothers had sayings, or mothers still have sayings. So I went around and asked my friends, what were some of the things that your mother said over and over that you remember that still stuck with you? And they said things like, wait until your father gets home, read my lips, because I said so, that's why. But my favorite saying here, my friend Myra, when her young son was acting up, she would say, I'm going to count to 1, and I better not get there. I love that one. So I wish my mother was still around so I could ask her questions like, why were you wearing an apron in this picture? Didn't women typically take their aprons off? So if your mother's still around, please sit down and ask her those kinds of questions, get to know her. And if she's not around, please sit down and write a story about her so you can pass it on to your kids. Again, my friend Myra that I just referred to is an author and teaches writing classes in Indianapolis. And she would tell you, don't worry about spelling or punctuation or sentence structure. Just get the story down so you can pass it on to your kids.